Hi everyone, I'm Smina Khan. I'm the Director for Undergraduate Admissions and Outreach for the University of Oxford, and it's my absolute pleasure to be able to chair this last session for you today. I'm joined by a group of brilliant supporters who are on the panel, and whilst we're waiting for some of them to join, I'll just give you a quick intro into what I do. So I've been in post for a number of years now, and my main job is to make sure that everybody knows how to apply to Oxford, and that we get a range of people applying, and we get a range of people being successful in joining us. So I work very closely with all our undergraduate colleges, and I also work very closely with the departments and the faculties who design the courses. So I will pause here and introduce the panel who are going to be joining me today. I wonder if Ibrahim, if you'd like to go first. I think most people probably know you from everything else that you've done today. But for my sake, would you do a quick intro?
I think everyone's a bit sick of me at this point. I'm more famous than Corona. Okay, so hello everybody. So my name is Ibrahim Mohammed. I go by Izzo online. I did my undergraduate degree in psychology at Cambridge. I then did a year of law school, and then I'm now doing my master's in education at St Anne's College at the University of Oxford. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm very passionate about access outreach, done quite a lot of work in student politics, and I have a YouTube channel.
Lovely, thank you. Rashma?
Hi everyone, I have a much less interesting story. I'm just a third year undergraduate at Pembroke College studying history, and yeah, I'm equally passionate about access, largely because I was on the receiving end of many initiatives like this, and I want to give back to you and sort of make all the struggles extra worth it by giving you as much wisdom as I can from it.
Brilliant, thank you. Mariam, I haven't seen you for ages. How are you?
Samina, so nice to see you. Hi everybody, it's nice to see you guys virtually also. So my name is Mariam. I'm a former student. I'm now the senior access officer. They basically can't get rid of me. A little bit about me and my background. I applied from Slough, from a family of 6 siblings where nobody had ever went to uni. Had a mum who was told quite strictly by uncle in Pakistan that she couldn't pursue an education because she was a woman. Went to a very struggling state school, and when I got my grades, one of my teachers was like, "You should apply for Oxford," and I was like, "Nah. For Martians, it's not for people like me." At this point, I wasn't even thinking about uni, let alone Oxford. 2 days before the deadline, I remember waking up and having this genuine epiphany of, yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. Like, I can't expect Oxford to give me a chance if I didn't get Oxford a chance. And then I got an interview, but then I was so petrified. I don't know about you guys, I was reading all these articles about, like, they're gonna ask you to, like, throw a chair across the room. And, like, you know, I had one mock interview, a spontaneous one, where my head teacher basically just shouted at me, like, "What do you think of the current political situation in Iraq?" And I was like, "I don't know, I just want to study English." And she was like, "Don't wear a sari." And I was like, "It's not my national dress." I could have worn one if I'd known how to wrap one. And then I went to the interview, and I remember leaving, and I was like, man, that was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Like, it just was completely different. So in a very long-winded way, the reason I got into this job is because I just really want to help people with the knowledge, the info, the tips that I wish I had access to when I was your age.
That's brilliant, Mariam. Thank you so much. And what we're going to try and do as part of this session is to demystify the Oxford application process, because it can look daunting, it can look complex, and people will pretend to be experts in it. And sometimes they are, which is great. It's great if they are. Sometimes they're not. So the political situation in Iran, if you want to do English, maybe if you're interested in Iranian literature, might be useful, but maybe not. So this is the point of this session, and the session is called, "What do I want from a degree?" That's a really, really important question. You need to think about that, and we'll try and help you with that. And what does Oxford want from a student? Because there is no typical Oxford student. Just want to put that out there. But before I do that, I think it's worth delving in and asking our panel, a couple of questions, because what degree you do, which university you go to, quite often can link to be what you want to be in life. Sometimes it isn't, and that's fine, because those sorts of things will come along as you learn more about the world, what possibilities there are, what chances there are, talking to other people. But sometimes people know what they want to do, which is also equally interesting. So I'm going to ask my panel 2 questions, okay? I want to ask you, throw yourself back to your 5-year-old self. What did you want to be when you were 5 years old? And I also want to ask, because parents are so important in our lives, what did your parents want you to be? Rashma, go on, you go for it. If you kick us off on that, it'd be great.
So I think when I was 5, I wanted to be something like a businesswoman. I don't really know why. I think I used the word entrepreneur. I probably didn't know what it meant. And I wanted to have businesses and all the things I was passionate about. That was like sports and a whole range of things, like a restaurant, so that my dad could like have his dream of owning a restaurant, all these like fun stuff. What did my parents want? Typical South Asian parent dream of being a doctor, probably most likely, especially as a woman. And it's definitely changed since then. When I was in secondary school for about 6 years, I was determined to be a barrister and a lawyer. Again, that changed, and now my plans after university are to go into teaching and transform education.
Fantastic. Ibrahim, do you want to go next?
Rasham was 5, she wanted to be a business woman. When I was 5, I think I wanted to be the pink Power Ranger, you know. I can't remember really what I wanted at that age. And I think that was my thing, was I didn't really have any like lifelong goals, especially during A-levels. Like I just wanted to get good grades. I just wanted to kind of make my teacher proud. If I'm being specific, I wanted to get the highest grades. It was a bit of a teacher's pet. But it was when I went into the Oxford education system, then I was like, oh wow, maybe I could be a lawyer because I now am exposed to what law is. Maybe I could be a psychologist. I think when I was making my application, I just wanted to study psychology. Like that was the goal. I just wanted to learn it. That was it. In terms of what my parents wanted me to be, I think they gave up well before me. So I didn't really have any aspirations for my parents. And I think that helped me because it meant that I could just decide on my own. And now the goal is to become a lawyer. So yeah, it's weird how life works.
Mariam.
I'm a bit like Ibs. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have any specific aspirations. Honestly, I was just taking it day by day, wise 5-year-old. And then when I got to uni, I think I just remembered, because of my experience being coming from an underrepresented background, I got very involved in outreach. This is not a career I thought I would ever have, but it's like super rewarding and super cool. As for my parents, I think they just wanted me to do something. I think both of them, you know, in their family struggled a huge amount. And so for them, it was like, look, just do something you love, etc., etc. I was lucky not to get that from my parents, but I certainly had pressures in the kind of wider family to be continued.
Thanks, so interesting, because in a way, you know, I am so much older than you guys, so much older. And what you're saying resonates with what I was hearing. And I still hear some of what you're saying with the next generation that are coming in. So it's a case of what I'm thinking about now. The most important thing I tell students when you're thinking about applying to any university, it can be Oxford, it can be any university, is to think really hard about the course that you're applying for. Don't worry about, is it at Oxford, is it at this college, is it at Brunel, is it wherever? The most important thing is really think hard about what you're really interested in, because after all, you are going to spend 3 or 4 years of your life doing this. So it's really got to be a big driver in your life. And sometimes it can be a challenge to express why you want to do something. But for me, it's, you know, it's about explaining to others as well who could be influencing this as well. So Rashmi, can I come to you? You chose history. History is not something I see many students from Pakistani and Bangladeshi backgrounds selecting to do that. So I always get excited when somebody's done a course that is not traditional, because when I look at the data and I look at the statistics, I know that 2/3 of our students from ethnic minority heritage go for a very small number of courses that Oxford offers. So what was your reasoning behind going for history?
I don't think it's probably the most inspiring reason that I chose it, but essentially it was a process of elimination. So I was like, I'm not good at science. I hate science. I had to, you know, cancel my dad's dreams of me being a doctor in medicine. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. Dropped them all off at GCSEs. I was done with it. Went into A levels, did history, politics, economics, and maths. Found maths really hard, so I left it at year 12. Then I had history, politics, and economics. Didn't want to take economics at uni because it was too mathsy. Wasn't that interested in the politics. And whenever I looked at the course options and the descriptions for history, it was the thing that seemed the most interesting. And I never really thought I was that good at anything in particular. So I was like, oh, I might as well just sort of go for this. And then once I had started to get into the process, that's when I started to read things that were really interesting in history. And that's where I started to kind of find the passion. I definitely am so glad I kind of made the decision that way, because it led me to where I was. But I think that my passion for history wasn't initially there. It was sort of kind of there, but not initially there. And since I've been here, it's really like grown and developed.
Fantastic. Wonder if the other two would like to come in. You know, what did you have? Did you have a very logical approach to what you wanted to study, or did it just come to you? Had it always been there, or was it something that maybe your teachers said? The best thing, what you're really, really good at is whatever it was. Because sometimes it's difficult to assess your own interests. That's why I think teachers play a very big role in this. Talk to your teachers as well about courses and what's on offer. Because sometimes what you are taught in schools, there's a bigger range of subjects outside of school. So it's always worth exploring. And this is an out-of-date one because I've been in lockdown since March 2020. But always look at the prospectus. Now, this is old school. This is hard copy. Everything is now up on the website. But do your homework in terms of looking at the course and finding out more about it. I wonder if, Mariam, is there anything else you want to say about what made you passionate about the subject you chose?
Ibs, do you want to go first? Oh, okay, thanks, cool. I think for me, it sounds really cliche, but English felt like such an escape for me. Like I just remember getting lost in books, and it really was about the enjoyment for me. And I think that's what you say about, you're studying the same thing for 3 to 4 years. So vocational aspirations, yeah, they're important, but they're not enough to sustain your interest for that duration of time. And I know certainly when I did get the offer for English, I remember like my grand teacher came over and he was like, Mariam, beta, this is fantastic news, Oxford, but what are you going to do with English? Why are you not becoming a doctor? And I was like, oh, thanks, Kari. He was completely wrong. We've all gone on to do different things. There are so many options which are available to us. I do think that it's really, really important to be looking for something, it sounds like a cliche word, that you genuinely are passionate and enthused about. Absolutely have vocational aspirations, just ensure that they aren't the only determining factor. And I think, when you're applying, especially to very competitive universities and to oversubscribed courses, that's where that comes into play even more.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Because you've done something that's, it's a little bit different. It's not your normal, traditional course that students take. Even though you did it over there in Cambridge, but we'll let you off.
Well, that's the thing with psychology. It's very, very, very atypical for kind of the brown community. I think I was the only brown boy on my entire course at Cambridge. But what inspired my application to psychology was my A-levels, and a lot during my A-levels. And I really appreciated the variety of not just social sciences, but also just a science element that psychology has. However, one thing I will say is the reason why I picked psychology at Cambridge over psychology at Oxford was, like you said, Samina, you're applying for a course and each university will teach it very differently. With Oxford, it was much more kind of scientific and experimental. With Cambridge, it was much more behavioral. So I definitely took that into consideration. As opposed to now, I'm doing my master's. I chose my master's in education at Oxford over Cambridge because similarly, Oxford teaches a master's in education, focusing more on like social mobility and doing higher education specifically, as opposed to Cambridge, which didn't. So I think it's to, as you said, really identify what makes this university different when it comes to teaching this course.
That's so important, so important. I think universities try their best to make sure the information is out there. And if you can't find it, just get in touch with somebody who are on one of the websites. At Oxford, it's study at Oxford. Email address, just ask your questions, and most universities, including Oxford, will do their very best to answer their questions. I know we're in lockdown and open days may or may not happen, but they will happen virtually. And we're hoping our September open day happens face-to-face, but that's fingers crossed. But open days are a great event at which you can find out more about subjects and really get to talk to the academics as well who will be teaching and design the courses. So ask them. So do your homework. I cannot stress that enough, and make sure the course you pick is right for you. Once you've got that, then actually the rest follows. And as Idzal already said, he wanted to do psychology. The course at Oxford didn't suit him. It's experimental psychology. It's too scientific. It's not what he's interested in. So he went to Cambridge, and we have forgiven him for that. I'll say that again. And he enjoyed it there because he did his homework. So that's first thing. Other thing is, as you all know, with Oxford and Cambridge, we have these things called colleges. And again, lots of information on our websites, on the college websites to find out about that. But again, I'm just going to turn to our panel. How did you decide which college? Because at Oxford, there are about 30 plus. What was it? Did you flick a coin? Did you go to the open day and fall in love with quad B over quad C? Or was it the food? What was it that drove you to it? Mariam, go for it.
Because I had 2 days in which I had to decide. I remember I just checked out at the time all the blurbs for various colleges. I didn't have the foggiest. I'd never visited Oxford. And I just saw LMH's blurb, and it was like, this was the first college to be founded for women. And I was like, that's really cool. Like that kind of pioneering spirit that gives me the opportunity I have today. Literally, that is the only reason I picked LMH. Like people pick based on like college pets and all sorts of random things. I know officially we advise, you should pick based on things like size, location, facilities, atmosphere. I've got small legs, and the English faculty was like a 5-minute walk through the parks. That worked out nicely for me. But it really is about, what's your vibe, what suits you. But equally, I don't really know anybody who ends up at another college who hates that college. Everybody is like fiercely loyal, is what I would say. I wonder if Rashma and Ibs agree.
Yeah, so for me, I did the Pembroke Humanities Summer School. So there's normally summer schools and sometimes spring, like Easter schools that happen throughout the year. Obviously, because of COVID, they've been either not happening or changed. And it was an opportunity to go and experience Oxford. I think it was for 10 days. And it was a range of things, just introducing you to Oxford and the system. Oxford is so new to me, and Pembroke was the only place that I was exposed to, despite coming and living here for 10 days, that I kind of just like, well, let me just sort of go with Pembroke, because like these are the guys that sort of introduced me to this place. Like, it seems great. And I met actually this really amazing history and politics now graduate, and she just spoke so highly of the history tutors. And I just thought, if I'm going to apply for history, if I'm going to apply for Oxford, like Pembroke's not giving me any reason not to apply here. That said, I really wish I had known more about Oxford, because I would have done more research about things that are more supportive in terms of finances and also like religious practice, because I know some colleges have, for example, like St. John's is like right next to Pembroke, or like Keble is like right, sorry, not Pembroke, Keble College is like right opposite the prayer room, so like it's really convenient. And I wish I had known these things to inform my decision, but I don't at all regret coming to Pembroke, because my experience would not have been anything that it was or is.
I think for me, I actually was pulled. So I think that's one thing to acknowledge. So I first applied to a college called Queen's College with my application, simply because a YouTuber went there, and there's so much information about colleges. Sometimes you just want familiarity. So I applied to Queen's College, had my interview there, but I got my offer from Wolfson College. And initially, I was just happy because I was like, look, I'm in Oxford, so it's fine. But I think what's really important to acknowledge is sometimes the most fanciest, richest, histrionic colleges maybe aren't suited for you. Wolfson College was a very modern, egalitarian, cosmopolitan college. And for me, it turned out to be one of the best things ever. And I think who more better suited than to say you, Ibs, will be best at this college than the tutors who actually have lived in Oxbridge and study there. So I think they made a very good choice in putting me at Wolfson, and I really enjoyed it. I really thrived. I picked St. Anne's College at Oxford for my master's because I knew what I liked. I did my research, and I knew that coming to a very inclusive college was important to me. As Reshma kind of pointed, having a college that maybe was a bit closer to the Tesco and Sainsbury's was really important. And then, yeah, I got into St. Anne's.
If I can just share a fun fact with you, just a little bit less than a quarter of students don't end up at the college they've applied to. So you will get moved, and we move people because we want to make sure that the best students who've applied that year get a place and get seen by a college, because the colleges are the admitting bodies. So lots of information there in terms of college selection: small, large. Do they offer halal food? How far are they? Do they offer prayer facilities, or how far are they from the Central University prayer facilities? Is it near your department? Things like that. You know, if you want to be near the Cowley Road, because that's where the fun, cosmopolitan side of town is, in my view, you might want to be down there. I, for example, applied to Trinity College because I wanted a small college, but actually I ended up at St Hilda's and I loved it. It's absolutely fantastic. So there are many things, but don't sweat about it too much, because it could be taken out of your hands. And as Mariam already said, everybody, wherever they get to, are fiercely loyal to their college. And never have I heard, or rarely have I heard, that somebody's unhappy there. Okay, so let's put that aside. We've done that. The other interesting thing about the Oxford application process is this early deadline. So just bear that in mind. 15th of October, 6 o'clock. Make sure you prepare in advance, and not 2 days like our Mariam, okay? Sorry. And the other things to notice about is when you've selected a course, and if you are applying to Oxford, which we certainly hope you are, that you do your homework again, that you look to see if there's an admissions test associated with that course. If there's written work, there will definitely be an interview, because Oxford interviews everybody that we make an offer to. I'm just going to hop back to admissions tests. Did any of you sit an admissions test? I wonder if you want to say a little bit something. Did you prepare for it? If you did, oh, please don't shake your hand, you didn't. Okay, never mind, it's okay. But if you had known, would you have prepared for it?
Okay, so the reason I didn't prepare for it is because I think life just took me away. The thing is, it's actually like, it's not something that you can even really prepare for anyways, because the admissions test, from what I understand in history, is it's designed for it to kind of almost level the playing field and be something so different. It doesn't matter what background you come from, it attempts to try and level everybody. So the first thing with that is there's certain things you can sort of prepare for, which is like timing of questions, maybe some past papers, etc. But ultimately, you don't even really bring in the knowledge that you have from your papers. You kind of bring in more the theory, the analysis, the skills. So that's kind of why I was okay. And I did have I think I got like a pretty like standard average mark of the year or something like that, maybe a little bit higher. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. Do your research, again, always do your research, but I wouldn't like sacrifice everything else for it. I think it's really important to strike a fine balance between that.
Very sound advice there, absolutely. Mariam, did you do the ELAT?
Yeah, I did the ELAT. What I did was, again, I think something my school didn't have the foggiest about, so I just went away and printed a paper out. Now that I'm like working in admissions, I have much better advice to give. I don't think I was very good at preparing at the time, but I sat one, my teacher sat one, and then we compared notes, and that was enough to kind of give me peace of mind. Obviously now I'd say, you know, statistically speaking, the more that you do it under timed conditions, the better you are likely to do in the real thing. I just want to pick up on something Rashma said, which was about the grade and getting an average grade. I remember when I got my grade, and because you might come from school, right, where you're like doing the best, you're like at the top of your class, etc., etc. And then I remember when I got my grade, I was like, this doesn't look very good. But actually, it's about your potential. Two, the admissions test, the way we grade is different. So the grade scale is not like what you're used to seeing in school. So I'd really say don't be put off by, you know, those practice papers, etc., etc. What you might think isn't a good mark actually absolutely could be, you know, with the rest of the competition.
Brilliant, thank you so much. There are plenty of past papers on our website, so there is no excuse not to at least look at them and to at least, I'm going into teacher mode now, so forgive me, but this is important. You do need to look at the tests. You need to be familiar with them. And as Rashma said, you need to be able to do it under time conditions, particularly things like the TSA, the Thinking Skills Assessment Test. There is barely any time to answer the question. So you need to have practice. You need to have had sight of it. So don't spend 3-4 years preparing for the admissions test. No, that's not what we're saying. But, you know, over the summer holidays from year 12 to year 13, you might want to have a look around and look at those tests. And if you're doing physics and maths and engineering and material sciences, the physics test and the maths test have a syllabus. So just putting that out there, there is a syllabus associated with those tests. And that means that the questions will be based on the content in that syllabus. So you will have had to have covered it to make sure that you can perform at your very best. So do take those opportunities, do have a look at those tests and do as much as you think is reasonable, but don't sweat about it too much. Great. So there are other things that some courses have that are linked to applications. That's written work, that's mainly to do with the humanities courses. And that's an essay or something that you will have done at school, your teacher's marked, and you send that in with your application. But there's loads more info on that on our website. Now we're turning to the interview. And as I said earlier, everyone who gets an offer from Oxford will have been interviewed. And we interview roughly across all the courses about 3 applicants for every place. So it is competitive, let's be honest about that. But we still want you to apply. We still want you to put your best foot forward. And there's lots of myths about the interviews. And I think it might be best to put those to one side and do your homework again. There are interview questions up on the website. There are mock interview videos. We've got those up on websites as well. But what I'm now going to do is turn to our lovely panel and ask you about your Oxford interview. Tell me what it was like before, as you were going into it. And also, when you were applying for Oxford, did having to do an interview put you off or make you cautious? Or do you say, come on, bring it on? And actually, what was it like afterwards? We're interested in Cambridge interviews as well, because they are sort of similar.
So I will say that now I love interviews. Before, I absolutely hated them. My Cambridge interview, I only had one, and my school didn't really have that much mock interview practice, but I will say I did have one, and I think it really, really helped just kind of sitting there on a chair and kind of just having that practice, being familiar with it, the setting. I did go to my interview and I was nervous, I was scared, and I think I was focusing on the wrong things. How do I speak posh? How do I act masculine? I didn't want to show my femininity for some reason. And so I was just thinking about the absolutely wrong things. And I have this habit of talking really fast when I'm stressed. And my mentality was, they've only got 25 minutes with me. I need to give them everything. And then one of the best advice that I got from a friend was breathe. So when you are in an interview and you do have a question, just breathe, think, and then respond. Doing my Oxford interview 3 years after my Cambridge interview, I thought it was great because I took that advice. I sat, I breathed. And I also think what was really important was it was a conversation, and it's a chance for you to not talk the fastest, but for you to show how much you love your subject and that you're willing to have an academic insight into it. One thing I will quickly say, and advice I would give is, they can ask you about anything. So any information you give them on the application, they may ask. I don't know who lied to me, but someone told me they won't ask about work experience. I was like, I'll just leave that. And then I got asked about my work experience. So just bear that in mind.
I'm happy to go next. I was definitely very nervous about my interview. It just only came to me right now. I think I completely lost this memory, but I actually applied for history and politics first. So I had a history interview and a politics interview. In the end, my offer was only for history because my politics side was much weaker. Another example of me not doing my research well enough. But anyways, we're here now. And I remember actually the interview experiences were the best academic conversation and thing that had happened in my entire life at that point. And I went back to school and I said to my teachers, do you know what, I don't even care if I don't get in anymore. This is just absolutely brilliant, and I loved it, and I felt so challenged, and it was just so stimulating, and I just want more of this. What I would say is sort of one reflection I have is Opposite to it actually is my interviewers didn't ask me a lot about the things on my personal statement, and I was like, I work so hard to read about all of this, I'm going to tell you about it. So I kind of like sometimes drove the conversation to talk about it. So I mentioned a book, I made sure that I said that when they asked me a question, I linked it back to that book and something that I read there. And I made sure that I touched on the things that I cared about, because this is my interview, it's about my interests, and I wanted them to hear about it. And another thing I would just say is, I actually they got me to look at some like sources that I hadn't seen before, and basically guess sort of where it was from. And I actually got something wrong. I made it like a wild guess. I don't know what it was about, and they're like, "Oh, this isn't correct," and therefore my analysis was wrong. And I was like, "Oh no!" And I thought this was like the end game, but it wasn't. They actually then told me what time period this photo was from, and then I corrected myself. And they really love that, because they want to be able to work with people not who know absolutely everything, because then what's the point in coming here? What's the point with education? But they want to work with people who can really like make, as Mariam said earlier, sort of it's about what you do with what you know, and really being able to persevere and be a student who wants to learn and is able to correct their mistakes and take on feedback. So I would really say, like, do your best in terms of preparing for it, but if you get something wrong, stay resilient, have confidence, and just keep on trying until you do get it right.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. Mariam.
Yeah, drop the mic, Rashma. You're so right, honestly. I was petrified. For me, I think the thing that scared me most was I was in classes of like 30. You know, I wasn't used to one-on-one at home. Politics wasn't table talk. Pakistan losing in the cricket one, the latest Star Plus drama was. So I was like, I'm just not used to having these conversations. One of the things that helped me is my teacher, really kindly, my English teacher, put on a very small reading club. Literally with 4 or 5 of us, and we did it for a few weeks, and it just got me, you know, feeling a little bit more comfortable about voicing my ideas, having conversations. As I said, there was a lot of misinformation. I think the process is a lot more transparent now, and there's, you know, social media, all of this stuff. It's really super helpful. What surprised me most about the actual interview is a bit like what Rashma was saying, that I did everything I thought I wasn't supposed to do. So like there was a part where for English, the second interview, you normally have an unseen piece of text, and so I had to annotate before I went in. 5 minutes in that 25-minute interview, I ran out of steam. I said everything I wanted to say, and I said the exact words that my teacher told me not to say, and I was like, I'm really sorry, that's all I have, I don't know. And they're like, that's okay, Mariam, what do you think of this? And I was like, oh, like they're guiding me. I can probe them, they can probe me. I told them when I didn't know stuff, you know, but I was always careful to speak them through my thought process. It really is about that willingness to learn, that potential, and your teachability. It's impossible to know everything about everything. They don't know everything about everything. And I remember leaving and I was like, you know what, a bit again, like Rashma, I was like, I'm not going to get a place, but I enjoy that so much. And I think that's actually a really cool, positive thing that you could take away. I know interviews can be petrifying, but if you can see it as an opportunity to, COVID permitting, go to a new city, meet new people, have a conversation about a subject you genuinely, really, really, hopefully love, with somebody who's an expert in a field and loves it just as much as you. And that's something you have in common with them already. So I think it really is about, you know, your mindset.
That's just so amazing. You guys are so amazing. That's absolutely fabulous. That's gold dust. What you've said is fantastic. And I hope everybody out there, even though we can't see you, I really hope you took that on board. Main thing with interviews is, if you're invited to an interview to Oxford or Cambridge, you have done so well. You have done so well. And I cannot express that enough. Let me put that into some sort of context. We had more than 24,000 applications this year. Again, a record number, more than last year, more than we've ever had. And we invite about 10,000 to interview, because that's all we can cover in terms of capacity and being able to see everybody in a way that's meaningful. So the fact that you got invited to an interview, if you didn't get an offer, just tells you how awesome you really are. And the sad part of my job is I have to we turn down more students than we can take, because we only have places for 3,300 at the end of the day. So the fact you got invited to an interview, well done, or you're awesome. Now, don't worry about what to wear, because you saw most of our academics, my God, they are the scruffiest guys and gals in the world. So don't worry about that. Just wear what feels comfortable. And when we get back to normal life, interviews take place in December. So for God's sake, this is a mum now coming at me. wear something warm because it gets chilly. It is chilly in Oxford. It's chilly in the colleges. So wear what's comfortable and right for the season. Just want to point out, in December, we did all our interviews online. Can you believe that? Even during the World Wars, Oxford did face-to-face interviews. And, you know, we changed history. Can you believe it? So anyway, if we have to do interviews again online because of COVID, we will give you plenty of time to prepare for that. The other thing is, as Mariam said, if you can, practice, because it's really important that you get to hear your own voice. Because quite often in school, when you're part of a big group, you don't get time to have that one-to-one conversation or that two-way conversation with somebody. So practice with somebody who is interested in the subject you want to apply for, and get them to ask you questions. Read articles about the subject, so you've got a broader knowledge compared to what you've learned from your A-levels. And it's the conversation. So I think all three of our panelists have said, it's the conversation. So get used to that. And don't assume that there is a right answer. That's so important. And Mariam said that. And if you don't understand anything, just say, actually, can you repeat that? I'm not sure. It might be this or it might be that. So show your thinking. You know, when you're doing maths and you're in Key Stage 2, and the teacher says, show you working out. This is exactly what we're asking for in an Oxford interview. Show you working out. I have to say this to mathematicians, because quite often if you're doing a maths interview, you're giving something to solve. Don't just pull the paper up to you and start scribbling without talking. You have to talk. You have to show them what's in here, okay? So get used to doing that. Just going back to personal statements. If you said personal statements are important, you have to know what you put in, so read it. And for God's sake, please, 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 don't write something that isn't truthful. It's so, so sad when somebody on the interview panel says, and this book, this character in this book, do you want to compare it to the text that we've just given you? And it's clear that the candidate hasn't actually read the book. They put it in because they thought it looked good. Please don't do that. Don't do that. So interviews are part of Oxford's application process, and we normally interview in December time, and those that we've shortlisted, we invite them to Oxford in normal times. I think that's about it with regards to interviews. Is there anything else we need to say? Probably not, probably not. But go back to our website. We've got loads of stuff on interviews and some questions as well that we've used in the past. So once people get invited to interview, then what we do round about January this year, it was on the 12th, we let everybody know who's got an offer, and we also write nice letters to people who haven't got offers. But we really hope they go on to many other great places and do other things. And you can always come to Oxford as a postgrad, can't you, Ibs? So I think that's it in terms of the process. It is different. We do ask a lot of you. We also have lots of information on you as well. We're interested in which school you went to do your GCSEs. We're interested in which school you are doing your A-levels at. We want to know if your ethnicity. We don't have that information when we're doing our selection. All of that comes afterwards. So do declare your ethnicity, because we want to know your backgrounds. And one more thing I just want to say about interviews. Don't be reserved about bringing your heritage into your answer. That's your unique selling point. If you're from Pakistan or if you're from Bangladesh and you've got something to say about economics in Bangladesh, or you've got something to say about poetry in Urdu, then bring it in if it's meaningful. That's your unique selling point. Don't forget that. Use it. So, where was I? I've completely forgotten where I was. It's sign of age, and a sign of being at home since March 2020 in lockdown. So anyway, I'll forget where I was. This is really important. If you want to apply to Oxford, make sure you get everything done and make sure you know what is required of you. I remember where I was. I was going to talk about all this information, and what it does, it helps us in terms of defining the context in which you've studied, because we're really interested in comparing people the best we can, and therefore the academically most able student gets the offer. And to help us to select students, we do look at contextual information, which points to whether you've been on free school meals, or you're at a school with a high proportion of free school meals, or if you are had any care experience, or if you're from an area where there's poor progression to higher education, or you come from an area where there is social economic disadvantage. So all those factors are worked into and help us to get to know more about you and also then who we make the offer to. Okay, right, we've got some questions. I wonder if we should answer them. Should we have a look? So the first one says, I've been thinking about an economics degree. What supercurricular activity do you recommend? Books? Would documentaries suffice? What do we think, guys? When you were thinking about your personal statement and what to put in, what sort of things came to mind? I know some people find personal statements very hard. In an Oxford personal statement, what we're really interested in is why this subject. What is it about this subject that's driven you to read more, to find out more about it, and things like that, that show your interest in the subject you're applying to. Did any of you think about supercurricular, or had you just naturally done something that showed your interest in the subject?
I think for me, because I did psychology, which wasn't like you, but at the age of 17, how do you get psychology, experience? So I think for me, I picked a degree that, the experience would be very atypical. And I think that science, whether it's social science or economic science or just psychology science, a lot of it does have a human element to it. And you can get that from kind of so many aspects of life. For me, I taught a lot about working in retail. So working in Primark, working in Marks and Spencer's. I talked about my own background, and I related that kind of human aspect to psychology. And economics, you can't deny there is also an element of mathematics to it as well. So I think when you are looking at, what extra supercurricular should I do, try and break down your actual degree into different elements and then kind of go one by one. For me, it was definitely reading books and also just talking about kind of methodology as well, which I think people forget in social sciences. So I did a lot of work in kind of retail that helped me with socializing. I used to work for a call center and we had to do statistics up there. So I just kind of basically brought my degree down and tried to get experience as much as I could through books, through kind of work experience, and just through also just socializing generally.
For me, I really wanted to bring sort of my identity to history, because what I realized is I had a bit of a spark of interest, but it was only when I started to think about sort of my own history, my family, and migration and all of that stuff, that's when I started to really enjoy it. So for me, it was about bringing all the different aspects of my identity into my personal statement. And one thing I would keep in mind is Oxford tend to prefer you to just focus on the academic interest. It's very academic in that sense. So don't try and fill up the extracurriculars too heavily. And when you do, make sure it's relevant. So for me, I did some experiences, like a little competition thing in policy making, and rather than talking about the fact that it gave me public speaking skills, I instead focused on the analytical skills I developed through doing that thing, and I knew that was important for history and I needed to show that to my tutors. And then I just brought together things like I was head girl and how being a woman in that role in a leadership position impacted certain the way that I see power and identity. So I did read books and stuff as well, but for me it was really thinking about how do I bring sort of, again, as Samina said earlier, my identity to this. And it was such a rare opportunity. If anything, that was the only opportunity other than the interview to be able to do that.
Thank you. Mariam, what to say? Anything else?
Yeah, I'd read books in my spare time outside of the curriculum, which I was really interested. So I love the topic of identity and deviance. So I'd been, I'd asked my teachers, I was like, can you suggest some books? And I think there are so many resources that you can be asking, your teachers, get in touch with the access officers, check out the reading list suggestions, check out, you can do so much, whether it's a podcast, which is available for free on the website. I think supercurricular can look so different, just as Ibs was saying. If I could give you a tip, one of the things that I did, which was really useful for my personal statement, it was like a dumping ground, was keeping an activity log. So, because it's so overwhelming, like you're like, what do I write? So I just like wrote down, I've done this, but more importantly, I put a further field where I was evaluating all of those experiences. So, you know, I read this book, this is what I actually thought of it. This is what it led me to then go on and pursue, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of littered my personal statement, Mariam top tip, with loads of questions. So like I'd talk about something I really enjoyed and then I'd pose a question. And then I'd go away and have a think about those questions. And actually, in my interview, we spoke a lot about those. They were like, did you give this some further thought? And luckily, I wasn't like, I don't know, I was hoping you tell me. So that's what I found most helpful, like putting an activity log together and really interrogating those experiences.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic top tip. So it is about going back to your subject and whatever you put in, particularly for the Oxford personal statement, and you've only done one. So I know there are other universities you apply for as well, but you need to put in things around the subject, academic things, to show your interest in that subject. And particularly with lockdown as it is, there probably isn't that many opportunities to do work experience or shadowing of people, which you might have been able to do in past. But actually for Oxford, that doesn't matter so much. I think we're much more interested in your academic extracurricular activities, what you've done, what you've read, what you might have seen in documentaries, what you have looked at on the web. You know, bring that to the table, and how that then sits with what you can say about the subject you're applying to. So this is quite a specific question. I'd like to study psychology at uni. What books would you recommend reading? Or what documentaries, films would you recommend reading? I mean, there's an awful lot out there. So my first response to that is, what branch of psychology are you interested in, as Ibs has already said, and also then find all the materials. But I'll pass over to you, Ibs, because you've probably got more to say on this, much more than I have.
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief, but yeah, you are right. It's psychology. There are so many branches of it. I think don't try to ignore that psychology is for some universities a science first. So there'll always be that science element. However, the best thing about psychology, it's so broad and you can apply it to so many different things. And for me to show off my academic insight in psychology, in my personal statement, I actually did a psychoanalysis of a Othello being a play that Shakespeare wrote. And I basically, there was a dream that one of the main characters had, Iago, and I did a psychoanalysis Freudian perspective. And I kind of then gave my opinion, which was very, very broad. I remember one of my teachers didn't like that because I was kind of arguing, you know, from a psychoanalysis perspective, is this character, does he have homoerotic views? And my teacher was like, no, that's not what it is. But another teacher loved it. And I actually brought that up in my interview. So I think don't be afraid to apply psychology, which is such a broad spectrum, to kind of any academic text you're reading. You know, you can apply psychology to things that are happening around the world, COVID, to, you know, things that are really popular on Netflix, to All the Boys I Loved. I don't know if you guys are watching that, but, you know, you can apply a psychoanalysis perspective on that. So don't be afraid.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, here's another question. Will university care about the types of books you read related to the subject, e.g. whether they're more like a textbook or not? I mean, I think what people are interested in is, have you gone outside what your teachers are teaching you and what you're being taught in class? Have you gone outside, for example, your English literature syllabus? Have you explored, and what have you explored, and have you what's driven that journey? I'm going to open up to you guys. What do you think?
I would agree. I think one thing that I did in sociology A-level, you know, we have so many studies that we're always talking about and utilizing. And there were some times where, you know, I would find this study really interesting, that I would go to the back of the A-level textbook where you actually have the actual reference. And then that way you can kind of take that study that you only read about for maybe 2 or 3 sentences, and then you can read the whole academic text privately. And then from there, you can go on to read other literature. So definitely read around above and beyond your subjects. Brilliant.
That's a really good top tip. You all have textbooks. and you should be able to find those references, the academic references. And if you have any problem trying to find them, talk to your teacher, they could probably help you. My favourite subject is psychology. I'm interested in studying either law or something related to social sciences. What could we recommend at Oxford? In a way, I would, if I could see you, Adam Hussain, I would push that back to you and say, it's up to you. You need to look at the different courses. You need to do that research yourself and then land on a course that you're interested in, and then dig even deeper, then talk to other people as well. There's one course, having said all of that, I am actually also going to push you towards human sciences. It's a little known course at Oxford, which I think, you know, in addition to looking at law, also look at that as well. Is there anybody else who want to add to that? Mariam, what do you think?
Sorry, I was still thinking about the question you asked before.
Sorry, go ahead and answer it.
So I was just going to say, I think a useful tip could be to not like subscribe to a norm or to put an expectation on yourself. I know certainly for English, I was like, what text do I have to read? Does it have to be the canon specifically? Like the clue is in the name, right? It's a personal statement, it's personal to you. So really make it about things that you enjoy, even if you think they're not like typically your subject or what the big thing being discussed is.
Absolutely, really valuable there. Here's a quick question. When the application process, do you take admissions tests? November, normally November the 5th, round about then. So what are the qualities that Oxford admissions values the most in the interviews? I think we've covered that quite a bit. Okay, what else have we got here? Loads of really great questions. So for medicine, we take the BMAT. Is there a separate entrance test exam for prospective Oxford medics as well as the BMAT? No, it's the BMAT is the test we do. We don't use any other test. Of course, there is an interview. Can someone apply to both the LMH foundation year and a normal Oxford course? Mariam, do you want to take that?
Yes, you absolutely can. Those actually run parallel to one another, so it doesn't take up one of your, UCAS options. So we say absolutely go ahead and apply to Oxford and also the foundation year should you wish.
How important are GCSEs? Can amazing A-levels and a good admissions test help for average GCSEs? They can. It depends on the strength of the other applicants that have applied that year. We do look at GCSEs in terms of context where you've taken them, at the school that you've taken them at. If you've performed in your GCSEs better than the average for your school, that's something we're interested in. So we do look at GCSEs, but it's not ultimately, the end of the story if you've not got great GCSE grades. There may be a very good reason for that, and just make sure you let us know. In particular, ask your teachers to let us know in the teacher's reference as to why that might be the case. Mariam, is there anything else you want to say about GCSEs? I'm going to you as in your role as access officer.
I'm somebody who I was petrified about the average GCSE rate, and I thought you needed like 1 million A stars, and I wasn't that person. There's a reason it's an average, right? Not everybody gets it. I think having, an excellent set of GCSEs can help to make your application more competitive, but it's by no means, the be all end all. It's a really holistic application process. And, as you say, Samina, when I was applying, they would have seen that there were loads of things happening at home. That meant I couldn't really realize my potential during GCSEs. They would have seen which school I came from, my postcode, etc., etc. So, I definitely think it's about your upward educational trajectory, and more importantly, your subject and how enthused you are by it and how you demonstrate that commitment and enthusiasm. It's about academic ability, yes, but very importantly, it's also about potential.
Thank you. What a lovely way to end. We have gone over time, and I apologise to Matt and his team. It's just been so great. I've just got carried away with it. I can answer all of these questions, but I know everybody else has got a life and you've got things to do. So I think all that's left is to thank my amazing panel. You've been absolutely awesome. Thank you for your top tips and your thoughts and sharing your personal experience. Thank you everybody who's tuned in today. I really hope this has helped you. And I really hope we see lots more applications from Pakistani and Bangladeshi students. It'd be awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Samina. Thank you, everyone. Bye.